If you are a fan of softball, you are going to love the Fastpitch TV show. From softballjunk.com, we're bringing you more softball than anyone on the planet. Sit back and get ready. Here's the Fastpitch TV show.
Hello, I'm Gary Leland, and this is the Fastpitch TV show, making sure and take a look at all my videos, blogs, and softball information on my website at www.fastpitch.tv. Now, the Fastpitch TV website brings you more free softball information than anyone on the planet. Now, today, I'm bringing you another episode of the history of softball. I'm working with Fastpitch softball legend Dr. Dot Richardson and Alison Strange of PFX Athletics to film a series of interviews between Dot Richardson and other softball legends. You are going to be amazed at some of the softball greats that are joining us on this series of shows. Now, in this episode, Dot Richardson interviews Hall of Fame legend Margie Wright. Now, this is the second of 3 interviews that Dot has done with Margie. Now, let's go to the show right after this short message.
Oops, sorry. I was reading this month's issue of the Fastpitch magazine. What? You're not familiar with the Fastpitch magazine? Watch this. You are going to love it. Looks great, right? Want to find more about the #1 coaching tool on the internet? Go to fastpitchmagazine.com today.
This legend deserves more than just one take. Margie Wright, I'm telling you, I can go on and on. One of the youngest players to play in women's major ball, coach at Fresno State, really opened the door of a lot of Title IX issues, getting a stadium built, one of the first in college to have a stadium at Fresno State. She coached for the Olympic team. She played professionally with the first pro league that was attempted in our sport, I believe. That was in 1976 that it started. But, you know, Margie, welcome to the show again.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Okay, talk to me about, first of all, as a young girl growing up, what was it like? Family, sports or not, brothers, sisters, talk to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I grew up in a small town in Illinois, 700 people, and so there were no sports for girls in junior high, high school, anything. The only organized sports were summer softball, and so I tried out and wanted to play on the boys' little league team because all my friends were boys, and that's where that's kind of where I went every day to play baseball. So I made the team, and on the night that I was supposed to get to play, the women's club in that little town decided that girls should not be playing with boys. And I was 10, and so I was too young to play softball because you had to be 12, to play organized ASA softball. So my mom made my dad start a team and said that I had to be able to play, so we lied about my age, just so I could play. I mean, I hate to say
lie.
I know.
Misrepresented.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I wanted to play so much, and, I think my parents just were really tired of me, moping around all the time because I wasn't getting to play. So, I got to play on my dad's team, and it was, the start of a career that I never would have imagined, that I would have. But my whole life, my parents, with all my brothers and sisters, always said, if there's anything you want to do in your life, you got to work hard to get it. And if you do, you'll get it, and don't ever, deny your dreams. So in my mind, I used to think I could pitch for the St. Louis Cardinals because that was the major league team, that I watched on TV all the time, and I didn't realize you're the wrong gender, So it was kind of shocking when, you're playing with these boys every day of your life, and now you can't be on a team with them. So I think that probably made me a little bit of a rebel when it came to, women being able to have opportunities, from that moment on, because I thought that was so unfair because I was better than most of them, and so it's like, okay, what can I do to, continue my opportunities, but maybe make opportunities be better for other little girls and young women. And so, from that moment on, that's where I started out, and here I am.
It's really interesting because that's very similar to my story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, that's why it's so important, why PFX Athletics is doing this, and you have Fastpitch TV, because we need to know the history.
Absolutely.
We're here in the Hall of Fame, the ASA Hall of Fame, which, you see men and women together playing this sport on the walls, but we really have it, but we don't really talk about it, I think, and promote it a lot.
Right.
And that's why you've been invited to be a part of the show, because your life shows the history or evolution of sport. And we talk about you now saying, okay, I have to be 12. Guess what? I'm 12, and I'm going to start playing softball. Right. What was it like? You played with a women's team?
Yes. Well, back then there weren't age groups. So if you wanted to play and you were 12, then you played in major women's. So you were competing against Joan Joyce, who was, older than me, and, you were competing against 30-year-olds, So what happened to me was, I was really small at 10 too. I either struck out or I walked. I couldn't even get the bat around, at that speed. Mm-hmm. So I either struck out or walked, but I did score a lot of runs because I did walk a lot. I was so small, it was hard to pitch to me.
Were you fast?
I was fast, and I never looked at, when I struck out, I never looked at that as failure. Mm-hmm. I looked at it as, okay, I just can't wait to get up the next time because, I'll get on base next time. And the first hit I had, I think, wasn't until I was like 12 or 13 because you were playing the best pitchers in the world. And so I didn't really ever understand what failure was. I just thought it was, okay, you got to do better next time, and your time will come. I just always looked at it as, you'll get it next time. And which I think was how most of us looked at it back then because we were finally getting the opportunity to play, mm-hmm. which we never had before. And so it was kind of like, okay, great, let me back up there.
It's part of the game.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the life lessons. But we say it so often, but what does it take to be a legend, to leave a legacy? And you've mentioned a couple of them, working hard, not losing sight of your dream. But the other one is so, obvious. It's not failure when you get a chance to participate.
Right.
Right. When you get a chance to play, and we talked about this now that in today's society, it's like, well, I get to participate, so that means I'm a winner. Right. No, it's not about winning or losing.
Right.
It's just competing in a game to be the best that you can be, the challenges that it faces, whether you fail or succeed in the structure of the game doesn't define who you are. You're always wanting to get better. Right? And
absolutely.
And you mentioned in the other segment that we had, and it hit me really powerfully because we'll get into all the coaching that you've done and the players and the evolution of them into the modern player. But really think about it. It's, are we really playing because we have passion for it? Yeah. Because every one of these women in here, I guarantee you, and I've played with a lot of them or against them or have seen them, and you included, have a passion, but not just to play, but to be excellent.
Right.
When I think of you, you played to be excellent.
Yeah, because why else play? Why do you play if you don't want to be the best? And again, it's not about having to win the game. Mm-hmm. It's about if I play my best, that's all I can do. And if the other team plays better, the outcome is whatever it is. And I think that gets lost sometimes. Over the years, I know it's gotten lost with a lot of coaches, a lot of players, because they look at it as such a failure, to them. And to me, I looked at it as, I want to win more than anybody, but I got to put that uniform on, or I got to coach a kid that, is a 4-time Olympian. That's winning to me because I got an opportunity that anybody else would give their right arm for. And I always felt so fortunate. It's just like this year. When I retired as the winningest coach in NCAA history. This year, 3 years later, that record got broken by Hutch, at Michigan. couldn't have wanted a better person, to break it. And the first, person called me, well, how do you feel? I'm like, what do you mean? How do I feel? I feel like I accomplished a lot in my career, and I'm very proud and happy for her that she got the same opportunity, to do that, because, we go through our lives and we don't get to accomplish things that are milestones like that. And, to me, I was the first person to congratulate her, because I know how hard it is, to fight for that long and to come out on top that many times it's very hard. And I think her outlook was always like mine. Hey, it doesn't matter about winning and losing. And if your outlook is like that, you're going to end up with more victories than you could ever imagine. I'm getting all teary-eyed here. There. I'm sorry.
The emotion.
Yeah,
I love it.
sorry.
You just saying getting all teary-eyed.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you are totally a legend, and I think you never really play for the accolades.
No.
And I tell you, when you're out there and you're playing, I just saw that perfection, the pursuit of perfection. And it really wasn't whether a batter was there or not. It's like, I'm going to make this pitch move. I'm going to make it dance. Yeah. So here's my question. So now you're playing women's majors. Tell me where that took you. Who did you play for? Okay. Where did it take you in travel ball? And then with college, let's talk about those.
Okay. Well, I played in Decatur, Illinois. That was where I was from, that area. Mm-hmm. And then
great softball town.
Yeah, for men and women. Great softball town. And then when I got older, my dad, had to stop coaching, because he was working 2 jobs, and trying to coach and everything else. I went and played on a team in Moline, Illinois, in the Quad Cities, Moline Redbirds. And we went to nationals almost every year. We were one of the best teams in our region area there, with Pekin and Milwaukee and a lot of great programs back then. So I got that opportunity. And then I played for the Macomb Magic one year. Mm-hmm. And then, before that, the Pro League came along. And I stopped playing for Moline and went to the professional league in St. Louis. Played on the expansion team there. Finished second, St. Louis Hummers, and we had to play against Connecticut, Meriden, Connecticut, which actually was the whole Breakette team.
The Falcons?
Yeah.
I was drafted to that
Falcons,
team.
Yes, I was too, and I turned it down.
What were you thinking?
Well, at the time, I had already committed to my, ASA team.
Yeah.
So then I didn't play the first year. I played the last 3 years, and played against the best. It was like the most phenomenal experience I've ever had, really, as a player, because 1 through 9, you had to be your best in order to get out of the inning, as a pitcher. So I felt like that was probably one of the best opportunities I ever had in my life, was playing in that Pro League. I was very
What was the
sad.
name of the Pro League?
It was the International Women's Professional Fastpitch, like IWPSL or something like that. And it was international because there was a team in Edmonton, Alberta, and so it had to be an international league. And it was phenomenal.
Billie Jean King, right?
Billie Jean King,
And
Joan Joyce,
were big in
and
getting
Jane
that going.
Blaylock
Yeah.
with the golfer. Those were the 3. And Bic Pens, those were the sponsors, and they really got it off its feet. And if you wanted to see some great softball, that was it. And in fact, I still have the reel-to-reel copy of the very last game that was ever played, and I pitched against Margaret Rebinar, and we lost 6-5 in the championship. But it was a phenomenal opportunity. And then, of course, you had to sit out a year to get your amateur status back. So I didn't play for a whole year. I learned how to play golf, and loved it. But I missed playing softball. So then I came back, played for the Macomb Magic for a year, and then
Kathy
Veroni, who was a great player for the Pekinlets. And so then after that, I moved to Fresno, and some of the players that I coached at Fresno started, graduating, so I formed my own team. And we actually came back and played out of Pekin, Illinois, the first couple of years. Got our sponsorship there, and then became the Fresno Force. And so I played.
Which is still going on today,
Yes.
the Fresno Force.
Yes, it is,
Yeah.
at all age levels. And so I played up until I was, until 1994 was really the last year that I played. And I got to be an All-American then. In fact, that was when the Olympic team for '96 was being selected, and the coaches and everything. And that was my last year playing, because I got selected to be one of the coaches, and they did a tour, and the whole summer was preoccupied with the USA team, so I had to stop playing. And when you're in your 40s and you stop, it's hard to start up again. So that was the end of my career, as far as a player. But it took me so many places. I met and played against some of the best players ever, in the sport. And, beyond softball, I decided to go to college, put myself through college on a bank loan because I wanted to play other sports, too. And that was the only way to do it.
And where'd you go to school?
I went to Illinois State and played field hockey, basketball, and softball.
Wow.
Never got a penny for it, but didn't care, because I was getting to play sports. And, finished second at the College World Series, there, and, as a player, and got to go to the Nationals and play basketball, on the very highest level. So it was a phenomenal opportunity. And then coached high school and started high school girls sports, in Illinois at that school. Coached 5 sports and had to drive the bus because that was the only way we could have, interscholastic teams. I did that for 3 years, got burned out, and then went to Eastern Illinois for a couple of years, and then back to my alma mater and coached softball for 6 years there, and then went to Fresno State for 27, and came here to Oklahoma City to the World Series 10 times with Fresno, twice with Illinois State, and had some great, phenomenal athletes that I got to coach, and wonderful experiences here that I would never trade.
Well, we talk about a lot how the sport prepares you for life and a lot of life lessons.
Yeah.
When I think of you, and I mean just the trailblazer, the trendsetter, all of those things, one of the things that really sticks out to me, and you hear it now with Muhammad Ali just passing and them talking about how there was so much more of the person, that is you to me, because you did a lot of battling that the sport prepared you for to open doors for collegiate female sports. And you don't have to get into all those battles, but I would love for you to share about the accomplishments that came out of all that hard work, because, I think these kids right now, even the ones you see walk in the hall, have no idea.
Right.
Like, I'll say, okay, an obvious, easy question. When was the first Olympics to ever host softball in the Olympic Games?
Yeah.
And it's easy, 1996.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
The kids are like, I don't, what?
Right.
They don't know.
No, that's
well,
right.
as you're talking about Fresno State and the power in college, UCLA, Fullerton, all those things, you to make a power out of Fresno State, how did you do it? And what were the things you had to do to get that stadium that's now named after you years later?
Right. Well, when you're at a mid-major school, even today, you have to fight harder. You don't have the finances, to do that. Fresno was a perfect community to, really try to promote softball because, it's in the middle of agriculture area. It's the only game in town. And when I went there and took that job, I thought, okay, we can make a powerhouse here because we have the fans, we have the facility, we certainly have the weather, and we're in the hotbed of softball at the time. So recruiting was not easy, but it was easier than most places because, kids could drive right up, and their parents could watch all their games coming up to Fresno State. So I did a lot with promoting the sport, even more so than coaching. The first few years, I was out speaking almost every day in that community and in the whole Central Valley, trying to get fans, to come in. And in the 27 years I was there, we led the nation in attendance, 20 of them. And I figured, okay, well, we can't get any more fans than what we have until we build a better venue. So I fought and fought and fought to get the school to build, or just give us lights, so we could play at night instead of the afternoon when people can't come, Wouldn't do it. So the Office for Civil Rights came and picked our school out of all the schools in California, and, they came and investigated us, and they found very quickly we were out of compliance, so we had to remedy that. So they came to me, well, what do you want? And I said, I want a softball stadium as nice as our baseball one. And they're like, okay. So they had to build one. And they built a $5 million stadium. It was the biggest and the best in the country. In fact, the only true stadium. And once we built that, and we invited UCLA to open it, and we had 6,000 people. And then that same year, we had Arizona come to town, and we had 6,000 people. everybody in the country at the big schools that had money, they're like, how can that mid-major school have a better facility than we do? And we don't want to go through a Title IX fight. Okay, so they started putting money into stadiums. I think I sent our stadium plans to probably 20 schools within the first year. They just wanted to see how did you build that, everything. And now, to me, at the time, I knew it was going to help the sport. I didn't know how much. But today, look at the stadiums that are out there today, because, it opened the door for administrations and other coaches to say, look, you want us to be the best, then you got to give us a venue where we can be the best. And I see the attendances now. I see all of this. And I know that I'm not the only one that did it, but I know that fighting at that point made a big difference, for so many other people. And at Fresno State in particular, they fired 3 of our coaches. It was a terrible time, to go through all of that, because it changes your life, changes who you are sometimes. And I was still standing because they couldn't really fire me because we were winning all the time. But when I left there with, anything I wanted, because I knew I fought the battle for the right reason, and I would do it again because, the women needed to be taken seriously. And I didn't want to be a second-class citizen anymore. I wanted to have what the men that were playing on the other side of the street had. And so we were able to get that at that time, and I think it made a big difference for a lot of other schools, because even though their coaches didn't have to fight the battle, the administrations recognized we better do this ahead of time, because they didn't really want to have to deal with it. And it was a hard time in my life, personally, but I would do it again, because I look out there today at the College World Series, and I look at the fans. These little girls are out there like, their eyes are so big. They're like, oh my gosh, look at that player out there. Look at, Paige Parker. She's a great pitcher, things like that. And I'm just looking at them like, this is what it's all about, is those young, little girls to look at somebody that is a role model and say, I want to be like her. And I want to play in a stadium like all these schools have. What better way, to represent women and represent just people in general, to have an opportunity like that, to be able to live the life and live the dream of something that a bunch of old timers, had dreams of. And now we don't ever, we really don't get to reap the benefits, but other people do. And I think that's kind of what you were made of, I was made of. All of the people in this room were made up of that. We were made up of, we're going to do everything we can to be the best we can. And we hope down the road, they're going to recognize it, and other people will get to have the same opportunity.
And we're down the road now. And for all these kids that are listening, and adults, and it doesn't matter of what age or gender, the whole point is that God has given us amazing gifts and opportunities.
Absolutely.
And those opportunities are meant to be shared. And that's all. I think the most frustrating thing in life is to have been given a talent and not to be able to express it. And right now, we're getting a lot of expression, but I think a lot of people just go through the motions. And I think that you showed such a passion for impacting the future. And the future is like now. It's like happening now. And you see these little people walking around, these young girls, and you mentioned that, to be able to dream big.
Yeah.
And this stadium that you built was big.
Yeah, it was big. It held 6,000 people. And the thing I think that the message I would say about this, because you're absolutely right on every point, but the message that I would say about, those of us who fought all those battles and everything, young people today need to understand how to be committed and to sacrifice for something that is bigger than they are. And I think that's what we've kind of lost. We've made this be more about individuals than we have the big picture. And the big picture is, you want this stadium out there at Hall of Fame Stadium to have 15,000 people next year instead of 10. Yes. I mean, you want to look at the big picture and be willing to sacrifice maybe yourself or other things, and understand what it means to love something so much that you're willing to do that. That's what we're missing. We're missing the love of being willing to do it, even though you know you're not going to benefit from it. And that's a big chunk.
And it's surprising in the sport of softball because really, yes, there's individual moments, but the moments don't mean anything or shouldn't mean anything if the team isn't what benefits from that contribution.
Right.
And I agree in the bigger scheme of things as we talk about individuals making a difference for society. Are you making it better? But define better. I think sometimes we make it better and there's an expectation of, give me a glove every year. Yeah, give me a new, new uniform. Come on, 3.
Right.
What? You're right. It's like, what? Only 80% of my college paid for?
Right.
Are you kidding me? I mean, what have you seen as a coach from the beginning when you started to towards the end? You said in 1994, right? Was that your last year coaching at Fresno? What was your last year?
My last year at Fresno was 2012.
So 2012. I mean, come on, you have got to see in that an evolutionary change of these young girls that you're recruiting. What sticks out to you?
Well, the biggest thing that sticks out to me is the reasons why they play and how they look at trying to get a scholarship. I think the sport itself has kind of changed that because we've gone away from double elimination tournaments where you get to see somebody under pressure come through. And the recruiting process is very difficult today because nobody ever gets to see the kid, rise to the occasion because they don't understand winning and losing. It's who's in the stands watching me right now. That's more important, to them, not necessarily because of the fault of the kids. It is the fault of everybody involved in softball, parents, coaches, all the people that are aligned in this whole, method of recruiting. Everybody has a responsibility. I think the responsibility of the coach is to go and say, look, we want to play double elimination. We don't want to play exposure anymore. We can get a lot of games in that short period of time, and people get to see these kids compete. Then it adds value to the player as to I'm playing because I want to win instead of I'm playing because I want a scholarship. You play well, you're going to get a scholarship. You don't have to come and perform for a college coach. You come and you win, or you play well, or you hustle, or you show them that you love the game, you're going to get a scholarship. That's just, a given. When I watched Laura and Randy Berg play when they were 12, I looked at them, I go, I want those kids on my team. When I saw Amanda Scott pitch at my camp, I want that kid on my team because they just loved what they were doing. They loved every minute of it. And if you needed somebody to pick up equipment, those were the kids picking up the equipment. And they were the best players. Now your players that aren't starters are the ones that are, bringing in the equipment and doing all that because these other kids are above that. And I'm like, no, you're not. You carry your own stuff. You help your teammates. And, so I think that's the biggest thing that's missing is understanding the value of the experience and realizing if I win, everybody wins. If I win, I get a scholarship. If I do everything right and I show that I love the game, I succeed instead of who's in the stands watching me as they walk in while their parents are carrying their bags. It's a totally, the whole picture is miscued, because it should be, I can't wait to get in there and play. I just can't wait to get in there and play. And that's lost in the whole thing. And I saw that in the recruiting process. I saw kids play, in the last 5 years that I was coaching. I would have to stay at a venue for 3 days to see a kid bat one time under pressure. And they didn't even realize they were under pressure. So it still wasn't a true read, necessarily. So that's the biggest thing I saw, in the whole process. The kids that loved to play when I first started coaching to the kids that they played because their parents wanted them to or because they wanted to get a scholarship, both the wrong reasons to, play anything.
Well, I recently started coaching Division I softball, and it's weird to me because there's not the same motivation.
Right.
It's almost, most of them are afraid to let the team down or their players down. I go, well, what does that mean?
Right.
You're going to let your teammates down if you don't train hard, practice hard, prioritize your commitment to the team and team rules.
Right.
That is truly letting them down. But there's this fear. I mean, a fear.
Fear. To me, and I would always tell my college team, I didn't want to get yelled at, or I didn't want to get in trouble, or I didn't want to let my parents down, and I look at them and, you're so afraid of everything. Mm-hmm. This is when you get afraid, when you're in a dark alley and it's midnight and there's nobody around. That's when fear should come out, not when you're playing a game that you love. Mm-hmm. That's not when you should be afraid. But unfortunately, society and the way our sport has kind of, gravitated to the exposure and who's watching and all that, the one thing these young players are afraid of is they don't want to embarrass themselves. They don't want to let their parents down, or they don't want to get yelled at. They have a total misperception of why they play. It's like, really? If my coach yelled at me, it just made me be more determined. Mm-hmm. It was like, because I didn't want to let him down, but they lit a fire under me. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to do better next time. Instead of, Mom, Dad, the coach yelled at me. It's like, seriously? My parents used to say, if you get yelled at by your coach, you're going to get double when you get home. That's the way it is. And don't complain to me about your coaches. You need to play better. Mm-hmm. I mean, period. And today, the kitchen table, if they ever get the chance to sit down at it after a tournament, they're talking about all the other kids on their team that made the mistakes that made them lose, instead of what could I have done better. And that's what we talked about. You could have done better in that game. Mm-hmm. You need to go out and practice this more, or whatever. And in most cases, they didn't even have to tell me. I was already out there doing it. But, that's what we're missing, is how people look at the game itself. Parents, coaches, players is very skewed. It's not the way it needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked at, I'm going to do everything I can for us to win. I'm going to do everything to make myself look good and my teammates look good. I want my parents to be proud of me, and I want my coach to be, put me in the lineup because I'm the best person here, instead of, no, he's not playing me because so-and-so, it's a joke. Now when I was recruiting, I would be listening to all the kids and the parents, what they would talk about in the stands. I mean, I finally had to go down, stand in the left field line away from everyone, because I'm listening to all this like, oh, well, yeah, but, that was a good hit, but, she did this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, I've never seen such a negative environment, than it used to be such a positive environment when I played. Mm-hmm. It was the greatest day of my life to get to walk on that field. Mm-hmm. And now it's like so heavy. And I just want to say, lighten up, have fun, doing what you're doing. Just enjoy it, instead of making it be about everybody else and what everybody else thinks and what the coach. Enjoy what you're doing, love it. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody would have a much better experience, out there if they could look at it that way.
Well, you are enjoying life.
I am.
What are you doing now?
Well, I'm retired, and now, after missing out on so many things that happened in my family, I lived so far away from them, I live back at home, and I get to see my nieces and nephews. They are in dance, they're in baseball, they're in football, they're in all these things, and I get to see them and not be stressed about it and just get to enjoy every minute of it. I still do lessons. I still try to help the game because I love it, and I still try to help young girls and young women get better. But, just the joy of getting to finally be around my family. They were there supporting me my whole life, and now I get to be there and support their kids, and and just enjoy it. It's really, it's made everything worthwhile.
Well, Margie Wright, the sport is indebted to you for all that you have done and you do now. This is Margie Wright, legend in the game.
Do you need a softball bat? Do you want to save $30? SoftballJunk.com is offering an additional $30 discount off the price of all non-sale softball bats on their website. That's right, $30. So the next time you buy a bat, go to SoftballJunk.com and enter the code FPTV30 during checkout, and wham! You just put a cool $30 in your pocket.
Welcome back. Now, I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Make sure and come back and watch more episodes of softball history. Please tell your friends about the Fastpitch TV show and about this series of softball history shows. Make sure take a look at my website, and that's at fastpitch.tv to keep up with all the episodes of the show. So until next time, this is your host, Gary Leland, saying goodbye and thanks for watching.
This show is a member of the Fastpitch TV network. See all of our shows and blogs at www.fastpitch.tv.